that's the problem that God's having with Israel. Keeping their attention, keeping their mind on the right thing. Have you tried to train an animal? You can't do something with the animal one time and expect them to get it. You got to do it over and over and over and over before it becomes a habit with that animal. Well, Israel was no better than a donkey, and God called them that several times. Stubborn as a mule. So he's having to teach them over and over again basic concepts. And then they'll get stubborn and they'll go along for a little while and be okay. And then he's got to teach them again. So we're going to start out here. I had to run out the car. I didn't have my glasses on. We're in Exodus 17. We're going to do 1 through 16 of this today. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, and that's right over there by Egypt, and they're headed to the holy mountain, to Mount Sinai, according to the commandment of the Lord. And they camped in Rephidim. Now understand, Rephidim is right by Mount Sinai. They only have a short distance to go, but they get there to that point. But there was no water for the people to drink. They got there and the wells were dry. So what do they start doing? Therefore the people contended with Moses, saying, Give us water that we may drink. Moses said to them, Why do you contend with me? I'm just a man. I'm not God. I'm a man. I can't just make water appear. Why do you tempt the Lord? If the Lord wanted there to be water here, there'd have been water here. He's trying to teach you something. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, Why is it that you have brought us up out of... Here we go again. It was better back in Egypt. To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst. And Moses cried out to the Lord. I know that feeling. Lord, help. Look what's going on. Saying, What shall I do with these people? Show the picture, if you were back there. So God's going to have to do another miracle. He's already parted the Red Sea. He's already done all the plagues, and the people still don't trust him. They are almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, Go on before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, also take in your hand the rod with which you struck the river, and go. So the same stick that he parted the Red Sea, he's taken the stick with him. Behold, I will stand before you there at the rock of Horeb. Now that word there and Sinai are the same. Mount Sinai, where they're going, the mountain of God, and Mount Horeb is the same thing. Some people argue that it's two different things. It's actually the same mountain. And you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people might drink. Now, God told him to strike the rock this time. We're going to get a little bit later in the story, and we're going to find out that things change, and it's to Moses' detriment that he doesn't follow what God says. So he called the name of the place Mesa and Meribah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us? After all that God has done, they're still questioning, was God still here? Now understand that the cloud and the fire are still there. The manna is still raining down. The birds are covering the camp for them to eat, and they're still saying, Is God amongst us? I wonder if God goes, when he thinks about Israel, Aren't you glad we have a greater God than that? That He can handle the stubbornness of the people? Aren't you glad He can handle my stubbornness? Okay? And when I go the wrong way, and when I complain about things, and when I'm not satisfied and happy with what I have, when I'm always wanting, you know what the downfall of all humanity is? One word: more. Every society that's fallen is because somebody in the society wanted more. More land, more money, more food, more this, more that. They were not satisfied with whatever they had. Everybody talks about, there's a whole sect of Christianity that believes in everything's past and we're just going to get better and better and better until the earth becomes a utopia, a perfect society, and there's no need, no want, no anything. I don't see it that way. I see we're going to the rapture, and Jesus is going to come, and there's going to be tribulation, and then it's going to be perfect. When we talk about the millennium period, that 1,000-year period, God is going to take man, and He is going to put them in the same type of paradise they had when they had Eden. There's not going to be no hunger, no want, no hurt, nor anything else for 1,000 years. And man is still, at the end of it, going to turn on God. You know what He's trying to prove? The human nature does not get perfect no matter what I give you. It's still human nature. And until it's no longer, until we have our new bodies, and we are risen to heaven, and we become a new being, we're always going to want more. Right now, what's going on overseas right now with Russia? What does Russia want? More. You know what happens when you give a bully more? Not to get political, but it's real simple. When they gave him Crimea, when he went and invaded this other country and took away the land, and the United Nations says, okay, we'll let you have Crimea. Now, I promise you, those people, they weren't happy with them making that decision and that deal to stop the war. But what happened? Was he satisfied with getting that? No, he wanted more. And that's just human nature. We always want more. What does God have to do to get us to the point that we're satisfied with what we have? Here, let me give you the answer. That was a rhetorical question. We have to die and be made perfect and end up in heaven, and then we won't want more because we'll have everything. Go to the next picture for me. The territory of the Amalekites. I want you to see this. Israel is way over here, and the Amalekites live way over here, but they claim all this more as theirs. And because Israel was coming here, not even to stay here, because they're going up there, but because they came on their land, they're going, this is mine, you can't be here. They came all the way across here to fight with Israel. Why? That's mine. You can't have it. This is my property. You can't be on it. Now Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. It's where the water thing happened, right? Well, understand something about this. God made this happen. Why? He's training a nation that has lived in Egypt for hundreds of years, and never in any of that time have they ever had to fight anybody. Never gone to war. The Egyptians took care of that. Somebody wanted to fight with us, well, the Egyptian armies went out and handled that for us. They're a new nation, and they've never fought. God had to train an army here. So he's bringing somebody against them from a long ways away for a questionable reason to fight with Israel. Notice God didn't take them up to the Philistines because he knew how strong they were. He didn't want Israel trying to fight the Philistines. At this time, Israel is still in what's called the Bronze Age. It means the swords they're fighting on are made out of bronze, which is a mixture of copper, okay? And the Philistines at this time are already they're in the Bronze Age. The Philistines are already in the Iron Age, where they have iron swords. What happens when you strike iron to copper? It breaks. So that's why at that time they weren't ready to fight the Philistines. So they're fighting Amalek, which is what they call a peer nation, about the same strength. Israel is a big nation, got lots of people, but the Amaleks, they've been fighting for their country, but they're not really big. So they come to fight against Israel. You want to say God made this, set up this fight? I don't know if you want to put it that way, but it kind of seems that way. He's training his people. And Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men to go out and fight. He didn't say, I want all of the men of Israel to pick up weapons and go fight them. No, choose us out some men. There's 1 million people here. You don't need all of them fighting. He wanted him to go into each one of the 12 tribes and pick out men there that were strong and healthy and could learn to fight in war. Choose out some men to go fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. Hear what he's saying? I'm going to have the rod of God, the same one that parted the seas, the same one that brought the water out of the rock. I'm going to stand up there with that rod of power. So Joshua did as Moses said to him and fought with Amalek. So they're out there fighting. For some of these men, it's the first time they probably held a weapon in their hand. And they're having to learn how to use it. Aren't you glad it wasn't the Philistines that have been beaten and have been probably driven back into Egypt? He picked the right country to fight with them so they could learn how to protect themselves. And Moses and Aaron and Hur went up on top of the hill. Go to my next picture here. So they go up on top of the hill. This is going to be an all-day long battle. This wasn't a little stick that Moses had. This was a staff. It was probably about that tall and about that big around. Can you imagine somebody having to hold that thing above their head all day long while the battle goes on? Can you imagine how tired he would get? And so it was that Moses held up his hand, and Israel prevailed. They were winning. And when he let down his hand because he got tired, Amalek started winning. But Moses' hands became heavy. I imagine after 4, 5, 6 hours of doing this, my hands are going to get heavy too. So they took a stone. Wouldn't that be a nice, comfortable chair to sit on? They took up a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, and Aaron and Hur supported his hands. See that word? It didn't say that they grabbed the rod of God and they held it up. No, they grabbed his arms, his hands, and they pushed them up and helped him hold the stick up. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and on the other, and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So the battle started in the morning, ended when the sun goes down. Now, you could probably go back in time and look at all the things to find out how many total hours that is, but I'm guessing it's somewhere around 10 hours that they probably were out there fighting. And the whole time Moses is like this, and he's got two men holding his arms up. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. They won. First test, they won. They didn't have to fight somebody really big. Only part of the people needed to be involved, but they learned a lot of lessons. And you know that those guys that were in that battle, they probably went back and started teaching the other guys, hey, this probably ain't going to be the last time we're going to have to fight. And here's what I learned. Here's how I held the sword. This is what I did. So they are learning to be what's God called? God's army. Do you know in Israel today, every man and woman, when they turn of age, are put in the army and given full army gear and army training and learn to shoot a gun and do a job in the army, and then after they serve their period, whether it's 2 years or 4 years or whatever it is, they are a reservist, hear this, for life. For the rest of their life. I remember watching Saddam Hussein was lobbing missiles into Israel. And I'm watching this on TV. And people are scurrying and they're going into the tunnels and everything else. And there was this one apartment building. And the reporters with their camera going around knocking on doors. Hey, you need to go to the bunker. And they're talking to people. They get to this one door. Lady opens the door. She's about 80 years old. Aren't you going to go to the bunker? Aren't you afraid? She said, I'm not afraid. Well, what if they come in here and try to get you? She smiled. She says, come with me. And she walks over to her closet and opens it up. And there's her gun and all of her battle gear right there in the closet. She said, let them come. I'm ready. When you fight Israel, you're not fighting the Israeli army. You're fighting the whole nation of Israel. Every woman, every man, from probably about 17, 18 years old to 80-something, has got a gun. You got to fight the whole nation. That's God's army. That's what God wanted. He wanted Israel to be strong and protect themselves. You said, well then how did they get destroyed? Because every time they were destroyed was because of what they were doing, and God brought the person there to destroy them. You know what he called the worst man to ever walk on the face of the earth? Nebuchadnezzar. You know what he called him? My tool. My instrument. I'm using him to teach my people. And he used him to destroy Jerusalem and burn the temple and take the people into captivity. And then once he purified the people in captivity, then he brought them back. You know, before they went into captivity, do you know what monotheism and polytheism is? It means many gods. That's what Israel was before they went into captivity. And mono means one God. When they went in, they were serving many gods. And one of the last prophets was bewailing, and God says, come with me. I want to show you something. Took him into the temple ground and says, look, what is that in my temple? It's the chariot of the sun and the moon and the stars. And you're worshiping that in my temple? Oh, that's not even the worst thing. And he takes him and shows him another altar and another altar inside of God's temple. He says, you're making me mad. You better clean this up or I'm going to do something about it. And he gave them over 100 years to do it, and they didn't do it. Then he brought Nebuchadnezzar. Then they destroyed them. Then he brought them back again. And then what happened in 70 A.D.? Once again, they were doing all the wrong things. Jesus had died. It was the Israeli hierarchy teaching a false way of loving God that killed Jesus. and then out of pride and arrogancy decided they could defeat the Roman armies. Okay, the Roman armies at that time were about at their height, and they covered like 12 different nations, and they could pull from all those nations were their warriors, and one contingency, one small group that was in there, just as a protectorate, they defeated them. What did that do? Gave Israel the big head. Look, we beat the Romans. No, you beat a small contingency of the Romans. So what did the Romans do? Okay, you want to do that? Watch this. And then thousands upon thousands upon thousands of soldiers started landing in Caesarea. And when they had the huge army there, many thousands of people, they started going to Jerusalem and destroying one town, burning it to the ground at a time, going all the way across Israel until every major town was destroyed till they got to Jerusalem. Then they get to Jerusalem, and what do? They surround the city. They don't attack it. They seal it off. There's skirmishes back and forth, but that's not the purpose. Romans have been fighting this type of battle for a very long time. So they took their hordes of army, and they surrounded the city. Then a special day came. It was the Passover, which is a high holy day. And they say, can we have a truce? Romans said, sure, you can have a truce. We have all these people from all these different countries that want to come and worship here at the Passover. Can they come into the city and worship? Romans said, go right ahead. Let them in. Passover's over. They said, okay, these people need to go home. Well, no. You asked if they could come in. You didn't say anything about them leaving. We're not letting anybody out. Well, the population went from a couple, probably 40, 50,000 or so in Jerusalem to over 1 million in Jerusalem with no more food or water. So what happens? Starvation. The Romans didn't have to defeat Jerusalem or Israel in 70 A.D. They pretty much got to walk in the city because everybody was so hungry and so destitute that there was no battle to be fought till they got to the temple. Now, when they got to the temple, the zealots were there. The ones with the crazy eyes. Yeah. And they said, you're not coming in here. And Romans says, oh, yes, we are. By that time, they had the temple ground filled with soldiers. So what did they do? They started shooting flaming arrows at the Romans. Guess what they ended up doing? Setting the temple on fire. The Romans didn't destroy that temple. Israelis did it themselves. Shooting flaming arrows. God destroyed it, but it was at the Israelis' hands. Why? Because they quit serving the Lord. They got so busy doing church that they forgot they're supposed to be worshiping God. The building wasn't important. God was what was important. The reason they were supposed to be serving at the temple was to honor God. They got so busy serving at the temple that they forgot about God, and it was all about the procedures of running the temple. What did they want? More. They want the Romans out of their country. What ended up happening? They all got destroyed, and what few were left of the Israelis when the Romans went all the way through the country. Have you ever heard the story of Masada? I'll have to tell you that story. The last of them ended up dying at Masada, and what was left were taken into chains into Rome of the nation of Israel. And that's how Israel fell in 70 A.D. God can train up an army, but he never intended that army to do things outside of his will. We have to stay within God's will.
Amen.
We don't do the things that we want to do. We got to do the things that God wants us to do. And when we get the big heads wanting more, better, stronger, faster, higher, and it's not in God's will, that's when we fail. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua. Once again, who's he doing it with? Joshua. You're going to hear that over and over again over the next several lessons. I will utterly blot out the remembrance, not just the nation, the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven. They won't be a people anymore when I get done with it. And Moses built an altar and he called the name, the Lord is my banner. What is he instituting there? The Lord is my banner. And what did the children of Israel from that day forward do? They were broke up into their 12 tribes, and each tribe had their own army contingency with a banner that they carried before them, and they had to be posted. We're going to talk about how they're posted to protect the center of the city and the center of the camp. And the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation. I'm not going to destroy them all at once. Why? I need them. It's going to help me train you. It's going to keep you sharp and ready to defend yourselves. I'm going to have war with them. I'm going to use them generation by generation to make sure that you're ready to be the army of the Lord that I want you to be. Some will say, well, gosh, all of that sounds so cruel. It sounds harsh. You know what it sounds that people don't like hearing? Just. See, we forget that our God is a loving, patient. When I say patient, I mean, he tried to get them to change for hundreds of years and they wouldn't do it. He was long-suffering. He was all those things. But you know what we don't want to hear about? We don't want to hear about a just God. When you don't do what you're supposed to do, there's going to come a time that you're going to go in front of the judge. And it ain't going to be pretty. If you're a Christian, you're guaranteed to be in heaven. So why are we here? You're here to live your life and have experiences in your life to train you for heaven, for eternity. That's why you're here. If you're not living your life, preparing your life for being in heaven, then you're going the wrong direction. God's going to put bad things in your life, just like he did with his own people to train them. Why? He's trying to teach you love and patience and long-suffering, and also strength and protection and all those things that you need to know. Because some of you will be administrators over whole cities in heaven. Some of you will judge angels in heaven. He's getting you ready for important jobs in heaven. Are you getting yourself ready? Are you doing the things that you should be doing to get yourself ready for your eternity? When you're there 10,000 years, you just started. You're going to have a time to sit down with all the prophets and everybody else and have conversations and learn wonderful things. But you have to be prepared. You say, well, I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. That's nice. Good job. But you know what you don't want to do? Use it as fire insurance. I'm saved, it's going to keep me out of hell. No, you're saved. That means your Christian life is just starting, and you should be getting better and better and better and better throughout your life to prepare you from your end. I've had some very good Christians that went home early in their life. And everybody bemoaned them. You know what? I sang their praises. They got to go home early because their job here on this earth was done. They had done all they needed to do to prepare themselves to be in heaven. Then there's the other side. They're saved, they're going to heaven, but they are living a life that is just a flame. And they're hurting God's mission here on earth. And yes, you can sin yourself to death, just like the Israelis did. God didn't just wipe them out. God gave them He sent them prophet after prophet. And what they do, they killed the prophets. The ones that were telling them, you're doing the wrong thing, you need to turn around and go the right way. They didn't like what they were hearing, so they killed the prophet. Sometimes we get prophets that come our way to try to take us the right direction. Don't slay the messengers, by the way. It's not a good thing. You've got to answer for that. Whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, I thank you for being here with us and joining us today. He's given us a wonderful message today. It's a siren call for what Christians should be doing and how you should be living your lives to prepare you for your eternity. So I hope you got a blessing from this. Once again, thank you for joining us here at Frontenac Baptist Church.